Now let's study about the law of demand. As stated earlier, the law of demand is in fact based on inverse relationship. Very simple. If the price rise, then the demand goes down. If the price comes down, the demand goes up. So there is an inverse relationship between the price of a commodity and the demand of a commodity. They always move in opposite direction. Okay. Now, when we have to study about the law of demand, then we always do it by say the partial equilibrium analysis. This partial equilibrium analysis was devised by Alfred Marshall, and he said that one factor determines the demand of a commodity, whereas the other factors remain constant at that time. So his theory, his law is based on one factor determining the demand of a commodity with other factors remaining constant at that time. And this, when other factors are remaining constant, is called as ceteris paribus. It's a Latin phrase according to which it means that the factors are constant, only one factor out of them is influencing the demand of a commodity. Well, if I had to talk about the assumptions regarding the law of demand, then the assumptions are that the price of a commodity must remain the same, the income of the consumer should remain unchanged, the taste and the preferences of the consumer should not change, and the units also should be same. And of course, they should be normal goods. They should not be given goods or other goods which I am going to talk about in the chapter. So remember, the assumptions of the law of demand are always based on when the price, income, taste and preferences and units consumed remain same, and it is based on the normal goods. Well, another thing is demand schedule and demand curve. Demand schedule is in fact a tabular presentation of the demand at a given point of time, whereas a demand curve is a graphic representation of the demand at a time. For example, if I say of a demand schedule, I said it's a tabular presentation. So it could be that at a given price, say 50 rupees, 40 rupees, 30 rupees, 20 rupees and 10 rupees, right? Now the quantity that is demanded, at 50 rupees it could be just 1, at 42, at 33, 24 and at 10 it will be 5. So this is the tabular presentation of the demand which is called as the demand schedule. This same demand schedule, when it is graphically represented, it is called as the demand curve. For example, if I say that this is what the demand is, that at 50 rupees it is 1, then at 40 it is 2, at 30 it is 3, at 40 it is 4 and at 10 it is 5. So what it is, at 50 as I said it was 1, at 40 it is 2, at 30 it is 3, at 20 it is 4 and at 10 it becomes 5. There is an inverse relationship that we have already seen, but graphically represented it's a demand curve, and when shown in a tabular presentation it's a demand schedule. So this is the curve that is drawn. But there are certain exceptions to all these laws, and those are, for example, of the Giffen goods. When the price of a commodity, as we said, is rising and the demand is decreasing, but when the income of a consumer rises, then the demand for the given good decrease. Now, what are given goods? Given goods are inferior goods. So, here what we are observing is very different. The income of the consumer is increasing, but the demand of the given goods is decreasing. For example, instead of wheat, some people, if they use jawar and bajra, but if the income of an individual will rise, he will give up the use of these given goods. Then, goods of status. As this was given by Professor Veblen, so it's called as Veblen goods. According to these goods, the thing is that even if the price of the goods of status rise, then too the consumer will buy it. Whereas the law of demand says that if the price increases, the demand should come down, but it doesn't happen in the goods of status. For example, diamonds. Okay? If the price is rising, then too, because it is a status symbol, the price of a luxury car, then too the people are going to buy, or rather are going to buy more. That is the exception to the law of demand. Then, price rise in future. It could be that there is an increase in the price of a commodity, but still consumers are buying it more because they fear that there is going to be a price rise in the near future. For example, when the price of sugar had gone up at a particular point of time, still the people were buying it and hoarding it because they had a fear that there is going to be a rise in the price of the sugar in the near future. Then the demonstration effect. Sometimes people want to show off like a film star or of a great personality. So, they tend to buy those commodities even if the price is high. That's a demonstration effect of a commodity. Then of course, emergency. If a war is there, or a drought is there, a famine is there, or any other natural or man-made calamity hits, that is the time that people, in spite of the rise in prices, tend to buy the commodities because they fear that it might not be available. So, the demand slope is always a downward slope, which affects because of the factors of the inverse relationship between demand and price, but these are the exceptions to the law of demand. The demand curve obeys the law of demand, which states that there is an inverse relationship between the demand and price of a commodity. They always move in opposite direction, as it is again and again stating, when the price rises, the demand comes down. When the price comes down, the demand rises. And thus, the demand curve is always a downward slope. And for this, the factors which are affecting it are downward slope, making it are diminishing marginal utility. When a consumer buys more and more and more, the utility of that commodity keeps on decreasing for him. So, more the commodity, lesser the utility, which means that it has to be downward slope when he reaches a point of time where he needs no more. Then is the substitution effect. The substitution effect means when the price of one commodity increases, we buy its substitute. That is, if the price of tea increases, then consumers will shift towards coffee. That is its substitute effect, which will again make the demand curve a downward slope. Next is the income effect. If the income of the consumer falls, then naturally he will not buy. So, next is new consumers. When there are new consumers in the market, what happens? They tend to buy more. So, all this makes it a downward slope. Now, we shall see how the demand gets affected by the price of other goods. As far as other goods are concerned, they are of two types, the substitute goods and the complementary goods. The substitute goods are which we can use in lieu of the other good. So, when I talk of, as I said, when the price of the tea will increase, I am going to start drinking coffee. So, tea and coffee are a substitute good. Coke and Pepsi are a substitute good. So, when the price of one good is increasing, we are going to make use of the substitute good. But there is a complementary goods also. Complementary goods are when the price of one good increases, it affects the demand of the other good. Complementary goods are which we use together. For example, bread and butter, car and petrol. And if I talk of car and petrol, supposing the price of the petrol rises very steep, then the cars running on the roads will become less. That means the demand for the purchase of the cars will increase because of the increase in its complementary good, that is the petrol. So, the complementary goods can increase or decrease the demand of a commodity, and substitute good is the other way around. That is, when the price of one commodity is increasing, it is leading to increase in the demand of the substitute good. So, that is a substitute good and a complementary good.